Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Greetings, conscious entrepreneurs. Add the Mind of an Entrepreneur show to your Roku TV lineup and catch up on past episodes of all your favorite Mo Today shows.
I can't keep it to myself. My heart will bust with all of this in it. I can't keep it to myself. I must tell it. Yes, sir. Even if God has forbidden me to tell it, I can't help it. By nature, I will be whispering.
Greetings, conscious entrepreneurs. You now can take the Mind of an Entrepreneur show wherever you go. I'm now available on Spotify. Just search Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace and blessings and Ramadan Mubarak. Hope everybody is having a wonderful fast. So welcome to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And today we're going to deal with fear, but fear around the economic climate. And I just want to talk about some points. I got some notes and just throwing a few things out there, having some conversations, interacting with you all. I see you all here in the chat, Ramadan Mubarak, and interacting with you all because the idea is to have enough conversation around this stuff that we are no longer quite as fearful of it. So I'm going to show us a quick 2-minute video on fear, and then we'll come back and we're going to dive right into it. You guys got time? Go and grab your coffee if you're on Central Time. Sunrise is not until 6:47, so you got a little time to enjoy you some coffee or tea or whatever you do. And hopefully you've already had your prayers and stuff this morning, and you're just ready to tune in and sit back and talk. So let's check out this video. I'll come back and we'll run through some of this financial stuff. Okay, here we go. Hold on, technical difficulty. I can't find, I'm one of these persons. I have so many windows open on my computer. I couldn't even find the daggone the video. Maybe I'm not supposed to play it for y'all today because I can't find it. Okay, here we go. I was actually starting to do some studying, and I was listening to all these older Savior's Day messages. Okay, let's see if we got it this time. Let's do it again. And if not, we just gonna roll right into it. I was actually listening to it for a few minutes before we got started. Okay.
It's not going to happen.
Okay, so y'all telling me y'all can't hear this. You're gonna I guess I'm listening to it myself, right? Okay, so we're gonna skip the video. Basically, what the video was talking to us about is dealing with fear. And I was, oh, some people saying they could hear it. Okay, anyway, I just stopped it now because I heard y'all saw some of y'all. I think Sister Aletha said no. Anyway, the video is talking about dealing with fear. And what I wanted to use that to lead into was what is happening, now out here in the financial markets and all of the propaganda, if you will, because the news is like carefully crafted PR. And you can barely get the truth and tell what's going on. There's all this stuff happening in the economy. You got bank failures and all this stuff. And it's making people afraid and very skittish. And the skittishness impacts our ability to see through the drama and for us to really apply historical logic. And what do I mean by that? No matter what has happened in this economy in the past, we as a people have survived it. We have survived it, no matter what has happened. We've pushed through, we've made it. Let me know in the chat if you all can hear me okay, because it is literally telling me that there is nobody online, but I see y'all in the chat. So this might be them doing something funky with the algorithm, since I said I'm talking about economic downfall. But let me know if you all can hear me, because it's now saying you have no one online. Don't know why I decided to let me see that. Okay, good. Okay. All right. this economic stuff is happening. And what we forget is that we've survived as a people and we will make it through this. Remember, God said he's going to take the bottom rail and raise it to the top. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of prophecy today. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that are in the news so that as you begin to hear the conversation about it, it can lessen some of your fears. Because at the end of the day, we've always been able to come up with a way in which we can survive. And so there's been times where the existing infrastructure, whether it was the Great Depression, whether it was, the Jim Crow era and days. Now, we went through our stuff, but we made it. We made it financially, and we're going to make it this time. But we have to make sure that we are paying attention. I want to lay the groundwork. I want you all, I'm not going to play this since the sharing is messing up, but I want you all to check out this lecture from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called The Decline of the American Dollar. I put a link in the chat. I think that lecture was from 2007. After we get off, you can go there and just kind of see and learn the basis of all of this. Because here's what happens. Have you ever had a job or been around people who try to make themselves seem so smart that they are making things complicated? People do that. They do that in the church. People do it at work. I remember being in corporate and these white boys would try to make things seem so complicated. And they have all of these, acronyms and, nicknames and things like that they use. And so you just start to feel like, maybe I don't know what they know. Maybe I'm just not as smart as them. And so when you start to feel like there's information that you can't understand, then what happens once you start to feel like there's information that you can't understand, then I think what happens, especially with us as a people, we start to have low self-esteem. We start to get sad. We start to get depressed. We start to feel like, okay, I'm not worthy. I'm afraid because I just don't understand all this. And so they put all this stuff out there. And these financial markets seem so complicated. And it's primarily because all these analysis models that they use. My degree is in finance. I got a dual degree in finance and accounting. And when I went to college, I was undecided. Well, not undecided. I started out in engineering. And then when I finally switched back over to business, I had so many credits, I ended up doing a dual degree. And so I'm very familiar with these complicated algorithms and ratios and, all these things that they would have us doing just to earn our grade. And so I hear a lot of that. And I think when the average person hears all this economic talk, they feel intimidated. They feel afraid. And I think that people intentionally complicate things because they know that it's going to make other people who don't understand it insecure. So I just wanted to lay that out there so that you understand kind of what's being done. The complication and the information seems so elite, but you got to study and have these conversations and start to look things up so that you don't feel insecure. Okay. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat if you all understand what I'm saying, since they're saying ain't nobody online with us. Okay. Now I want to talk about copper. Okay. Many of you all know that I was inspired to create these commemorative Elijah coin. This here is the membership coin. And when you get one of these, we actually have a special going on. When you buy it, you can just put Ramadan 23 in the discount code and it'll give you 10% off. So this is now $450 for Ramadan. But many of you know that I was inspired. I had just this strong urge to do something with the copper. And so we took the copper down off of the building, the old copper. We had to wash it. We had to clean it. We had to bind it. We smelted it down at 1,983 degrees Fahrenheit, created the mold, and made these membership coins. And this coin, we're using the value we're attaching to this coin is not only because of where it came from, but also because of the membership that's attached to the number here. And if you all were around during Savior's Day, you know that membership definitely has its privileges. And we'll be talking about that a little bit sooner, like what you're going to get with this membership when you purchase this membership coin. So I feel like it was really a divine message to say, do something with the copper. Let the copper be a symbol, because what we're seeing now is that commodities are ruling the market. Copper is one of the most critical metals for the green world. So we have all of these electric cars coming out. You got GM saying eventually they're going to have all electric cars. Of course, some of us have had Teslas for a while. But without copper, we have no electricity. This is how important this is. Goldman Sachs came out a few years ago and said copper is the new oil. There have been people who have said that copper is the new precious metal. But because now we're going to be so heavily dependent on copper, and it takes so long to mine copper, the price of copper now is skyrocketing. And what you're starting to see is that the government has begun to support mining, because for a while mining was kind of not being supported. But all your big financial guys, if you watch any of the financial channels, guys and women are talking about the importance of mining. So the government is going to assist with streamlining the process. They're going to increase access to land for mining, because copper is required to transition us from carbon energy to green energy. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a sign of this. All these electric cars don't work without copper. We will even likely have to expand our power grid. That's another thing. Our power grids may not be able to support all of these electric vehicles and stuff. And what very well may happen is you might start to see some substitutes. So this copper is a symbol and a sign of, in my opinion, of the change in the U.S. economy or in the world economy that we're going to start to see. Electric cars are not as big internationally as a lot of places, primarily because for the most part, Tesla held the patent, and it was a U.S. patent. So you didn't see electric cars in Africa and Europe a lot, but you're going to start really seeing them now. But this copper is of a lot of value. And in addition to it being a token, if you will, for access to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House, it is also a token and a symbol for the fall of this empire that we know of as these Western economic empires. And when we say the fall, let me just say this, because I think sometimes people get freaked out when they hear us talk about the fall of an economic empire. And they think that we hating or whatever, but it's true. And if you listen to any of these shows, they will tell you that the dollar is falling and the economic empire is falling. And you have now this globalization of the economy that is leveling the playing field and changing things a lot. And so, the dollar is now almost in a free-for-all. So I know you all are hearing a lot of this and it's confusing. Let me say this to you. We have the Feds, which you guys are probably hearing, the raising interest rates. And you guys have probably heard how they're trying to ward off inflation by raising interest rates. Now, this is an interesting play here, because they're bringing up the rates and inching them higher. There's some people that argue that they should do it fast. It's like ripping the band off real quick. There's others that say they have to do it slow so they can see how the market is going to react. But what is happening in the US is that the two biggest industries that support our economy are now suffering as a result of this devaluation of the dollar and the counteraction to that of the raising of the interest rates. And that's the real estate market and the automotive business. Those industries are being killed by these Fed rate hikes. And so it's ultimately destroying the American economy, if you will, if it wasn't already bad. But why is our U.S. economy being sacrificed as a result of these rate hikes? And why are these people, these central planners and all these people, why are they saying, you know what, we're going to have to sacrifice the real estate industry and the automotive industry? Why are they doing that? It's because the U.S. has been weaponizing the U.S. dollar for years via sanctions and embargoes, and the value of the dollar determines the power of the weaponry of the dollar. And so with the dollar falling, it's a tough valuation to maintain when we don't produce much of anything. So you got sanctions against people, and the dollar, when the dollar was king and the dollar was at the top of its game and the U.S. economy was strong, that meant something. So if they put sanctions on somebody, all of these different countries you hear about, then the countries would say, all right, man, this is messed up, because not only do we have to buy our oil in dollars, we have to buy gold in dollars, we got to order whatever we need from the US, but now we're in a tricky situation because the dollar's not performing, our economy is bad, we don't really manufacture anything. So these countries now can go straight to China or somewhere else to order the things that maybe at one point they used to order from the US. And so they don't care. And then now they don't want our dollar. So some of them, like China, have big reserves of US dollars, but they don't really want it now. So what does that mean? That means that the sanctions don't have the power that they used to, because they don't need us. They actually don't want us anymore. So they no longer will use the dollar as a reserve currency because they don't have to. So you got the Russians, the Chinese, the Indians, the Brazilians, South Africans, they're buying gold and backing their currency with gold. And remember, the dollar is not backed by anything, and it's heavily, heavily influenced by data. It is actually more influenced by data than I believe they care to admit. Really more influenced by data. And we've had this conversation, if you all remember me talking about this. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us an economic blueprint as a model. And many of us hear that and we go, yeah. And I've tried on some of our shows, like in the manifestation class and the accomplishments of the Muslim, to kind of break down that economic model. You can go back if you like and subscribe to this channel, and you can check out some of those talks that I did. I talked about the data-driven economy. I kind of broke down the economic plan in terms of understanding it based on industries, and also in terms of understanding how and some of the mechanisms that we would use. Some people think of the messenger saying that we must unite and pool our resources sort of as a spiritual brother, sister type of thing. But I've talked about how just our unity and the unity of probably a smaller number of us than what we think can impact the algorithms and the things that is so that they base the economy on. So what happens is the people who run the stock markets, the analysts, the central planners, they create forecasts. And these forecasts are based on predictions. And they have built-in assumptions on how people like us, Black people in America, who are the number one consumers. Let's make that clear. We are the number one consumers. So they have they have certain assumptions on how they believe that we'll perform. We're very easily manipulated by the information that's out there. They know what information to put out there to make us go spend. They know what information to put out there to make us go buy certain things. So just a number of us having uniting together and pooling our resource can really make an adjustment in the market. And again, like I said, the one thing they don't want to admit is how much we are influenced by data. So much so that the government is also cracking down on social media influencers whose impact is so powerful that they're actually affecting the markets. Why? Because with the central planners are making forecasts, for example, and designing strategies that will protect the US dollar abroad, these influencers can pull the rug out from under those predictions. And so when they come out with these forecasts and these predictions and these analysts do all this stuff, then people invest their dollars based on this analysis that they see. But when you get the Kim Kardashians and the DJ Khaled's and Lindsay Lohan and Soulja Boy and Neo coming out here and telling people to invest in something, it bothers them. And it bothers the algorithm, because if you think about during the pandemic, nobody predicted the impact that Robinhood would have on the marketplace, how many people would jump into investing. Nobody predicted what cryptocurrency would do and the amount of money that would be flowing through there. See, the SEC charged those influencers with illegally touting crypto investments without disclosing that they were being paid. Or maybe not properly disclosing. They may have had like a smaller little byline and maybe they should have said more. Or it could simply have been that if you get those top influencers that we name and they tell you to go and pool your resource or unite and do something, you can affect a market or an industry materially enough that it will affect the stock, the investment, and it'll actually move money, believe it or not. Why is this a thing if crypto is not a security? And I've been saying this for the longest. Like, they said that crypto was a commodity. And commodities generally don't price based on forecasts. So the stock market will change based on forecasts. So the forecasts that come out by certain organizations become embedded in the price of the stock. Commodities generally don't do that. They don't change the way securities do. So I thought it was interesting that they would charge these people with this, or it was actually the SEC that charged them, and crypto's not a security. So that's an interesting twist. And if you've been following this thing, you know that there's a scramble to own the transaction databases, like Coinbase and even down to like PayPal and Zoom and all of that. The transaction, as we move into this digital currency market that we're in, where people rarely have cash, there has to be a settlement company. There's that fee. And so our banks are looking to purchase that. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little later, about the banking crisis. We'll talk about that a little bit. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat before I move on. Let's see. I see y'all talking. Okay. So the influencers have been getting in trouble. And a lot of that is so that they can kind of silence them a little bit, because they can really, they could crash a market. I mean, you have some of these big CEOs, when they come out, if they come out in the morning and say something negative, you'll see the stock market react immediately. So imagine these social media influencers that influence millions of people. If they come out and tell you buy something or don't buy something, it can be a problem. So if you notice, they generally will take those influencers either down off of the internet. Sometimes you all may wonder, I remember before my my first Instagram account got hacked, I probably had like 50 something thousand followers. And then afterwards, even though more people look at my shows and stuff, they don't allow the followers or that many people. Like right now, it's saying that there's only one person watching us live, but I can see you all in the chat. And I would see those discrepancies. So I know how they squash data and shadow ban people because they don't want you to have an influence over certain things. And so can you imagine how concerned they are over people like the Kardashians and people like that impacting the market? That's why now you don't really hear that much about Robinhood, and there was all this speculation about it, but you don't hear that much about it like we did during the pandemic. Anyway, so again, going back to the central planners deciding that they would sacrifice the two biggest industries, the two biggest U.S. industries, which is real estate and automotive, by raising these interest rates, you're literally freezing any type of movement and cash flow in those industries. You have to ask yourself, why are they doing that and why would they do it? Now, one of my theories is the valuation of the sanctions, but it's also could potentially be so that we get rid of these smaller banks, and we have like probably a handful or so of mega banks who can then be in charge of the centralized digital currency. That's what I think, and I think they probably have already cut those deals because they've already just did a study. It's called Project Cedar, I believe. You can look it up, and you'll see. Just Google Project Cedar results, and you'll see the study that they've done with the banking, the leaders in the banking industry, and I think also MasterCard, as they begin to work on creating this centralized digital currency. And then I think once they purchase or design or implement this central settlement and digital currency process, then they'll probably give it to these key banks, certain banks, to administer. So I don't think the U.S. government is going to be your bank. It's still going to be a bank, but that bank will be administering, this system set up by the U.S. government. And a lot of people are talking about how they're worried about it because they're worried about privacy. They're worried about, so for example, if you got like a stimulus check or something like that, instead of you getting a paper check, you would get it directly in your digital currency account. Or like if you get food stamps or something like that. Let me see how much time I got before I gotta stop. I got 10 minutes. Okay. So think about this. Those two top industries really being shut down with these raising interest rates. Then the central planners calculate the GDP, or the gross domestic product. The gross domestic product is a monetary measure of the market value of all the final goods and services produced and sold in a specific time period by a country or countries, generally without double counting for the intermediate goods that it used to produce them. So whatever your cost of goods sold is, it doesn't go into your GDP. Now, and here's the formula. It's consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. So if an influencer, say like Soulja Boy, for example, is materially impacting one of the components of this equation, those people who spend all those hours calculating and forecasting will get a little bit upset. I think y'all get the picture. These predictions impact the stock market and the value of the dollar, which is fragile because it's just paper and it's not backed by gold or oil. It's backed by a heavily influenced data market and algorithms. So when the US dollar is weaponized, this becomes extremely important to our domestic economy because these central planners may have to sacrifice our local domestic economy in order to maintain the strength of the US dollar abroad. especially connected to sanctions and embargoes. And countries with conflicts and challenges are coming together to hedge against U.S. involvement. They don't want to be accountable to U.S. regulations. They don't want to have to convert their currency to U.S. dollars in order to purchase oil, or they don't want to be on our SWIFT system anymore because they feel like it's too slow. They feel like it's very dinosaur-like. And I'm talking about this stuff just so you all can hear it in layman's terms. So when you hear it in the news, you're not afraid of it, and you don't transfer that fear over to your money. So what happens now? Well, the U.S. thought she had an unlimited checkbook and she would just print up money and send it out, but we don't. And at some point, you have to do like Nixon did in 1971 and remove the gold standard so that people can cash in. But now there's nothing to remove. The only thing that they kind of really have is like the interest rates. Let me just play with that a little bit. But the countries are like, look, we don't want the dollars, and the U.S. has to actually begin to balance her checkbook or get another unlimited supply of money. So, we'll see. It's quite a puzzle. So let me talk about these settlement processes. You have cryptocurrency, but more interestingly, you have settlement banks or settlement processes. All of us use these settlement processes like PayPal and Zelle and Shop, and even Apple and Google are in. You got Google Wallet and Apple Pay, and when you purchase something using your digital currency like your credit card, there's a processing fee. And I remember back in the day, there was a multi-level marketing company that was claiming to allow people who got in to earn a percentage of the transaction fees that we incur at an ATM. Well, imagine not only getting some of that fee, but also creating a company that just handles payments and transactions, or a company like Coinbase that handles it for the cryptocurrency, even PayPal. And the central bank is not getting any of that money. Well, I think they get some of the PayPal stuff, but they're really not getting any of that money. And so next week, I want to come back and we're going to talk about CBDCs and dive into that a little bit. So let me see. Let me go back up here because I saw some questions. Sandra D said the dollar is losing its world reserve currency status and the BRICS is coming up strong. Yeah, it is. And I guess what I don't want is I don't want us worrying and tripping on that. We have to begin to put our minds towards being more global citizens, start paying attention to your global news, and go back to the manifestation or the accomplishments of the Muslim series, where I talked about what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us we should be focusing on. He told us to focus on the needs of the people. And he gave us examples of what we should invest in. What should we do? We should unite. We should pool our resources. That, like I said, that sounded like some old cultural, religious talk, and everybody just dissed it back in the 60s and the 70s because they didn't think that it would impact the economy the way it does. But he actually gave us an alley-oop, if you will. They are deleting folks from following and everything. FCC has programs, but yeah. Social media influence investors to take their money out of SVB. That is true. FOMC tanked the market as well, but not by much because it is already priced in. I'm having that issue with TikTok. They sent a message saying that they were deleting inappropriate follow. I don't know what them people, they're really trying to, control this thing. But so this is why, Sister Alicia, I want to talk about this, because I don't want us thinking that is spooky. Always remember this: whatever is happening, there's always a scriptural or a divine tie to whatever is happening. I firmly believe that Allah is setting this thing up for us. Those at the bottom rail, those who they say have no influence, are going to be in a position because all we can do is go up. And so now this group of people who are the biggest consumers, we can turn this tide a little bit And whatever's being set up is going to be for our betterment. We already know that. So don't look at it as spooky. Just pay attention. Just look, just watch. Make sure you know, and make sure you know what's going on. Kind of try to understand it a little bit. If things get a little bit complicated, go places like YouTube or whatever and check it out. Brother Robert says, so how does this create opportunities for those of us seeking opportunity in the real estate market? Well, remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that America would be for sale. He also said that this is why we have to unite and pool our resources, because we can pool our resources and buy up some of this stuff. You have vacant commercial building. Now, the commercial real estate market has been in trouble for a long time, but it's really in trouble now because this is what happened. It used to be that if you went and bought a commercial building, depending on your financial capacity, it could be a skyscraper like the Sears Tower in Chicago. You could purchase that. It could be like the Discover Building in Silver Spring, Maryland, but it could be big like that, or it could be a 3-flat or 4-flat. But generally what the banks will require is that if you had leases and you had a certain vacancy or occupancy rate, you could get a loan. And so you had those leases and they would loan you money based on how many tenants you had. So if you had a big empty building, it probably would be a little bit more difficult for you to get a loan. You'd have to get a loan on the value of the building. But a lot of these people were purchasing and building these buildings and getting loans on the revenue potential or the revenue of the building. But what's happening now is that a lot of these tenants are moving out. They're vacating these buildings. And instead of these people trying to figure out a better way to manage the debt and figure it out, they just filing bankruptcy and abandoning these buildings. So there are buildings out here that you can probably purchase at a much cheaper rate than what you actually think, because people's emotions play into how they price things and what they do, whether they jump off the building or panic. So what does that mean for us? We either have to hold on to our cash so that we can invest in this real estate, or pool our resources so we can come together if we're short of cash during this period of time and invest in this real estate. Because at the end of the day, what they're trying to do now is they're trying to discourage, not at the end of the day, but what they're trying to do now is discourage people from going into real estate. Why? Because they keep talking about the interest rates. And so a lot of times we hear that and they say, man, the interest rates is through the roof. Don't make sense for me to try to buy no building. But what we don't realize is that there's so many buildings for sale that are much cheaper than what you would have thought. So America is and will be for sale. And so we just have to be ready to gobble some of that stuff up. We got to be able to come together, because our people are still going to have needs. Our people are still going to need food, clothing, and shelter. We're still going to be able to introduce much needed goods and services into our communities. The way we do it might change. The way in which we receive money and the way in which they pay for these goods may change. Where we keep our money, whether it's digitally or fiat paper currency, may change, but people are still going to need basic things: food, clothing, shelter, and other needs. Now you got to be digital. There's other needs that we're going to need, and we'll be able to satisfy those needs. Because if we as a people are priced out of the game, whether it's because transaction fees are too high, there will be a whole sub-market of goods and services and things that are transacted. There'll be people with cash who will be able to loan you money. And inshallah, if they're Muslim, they will loan you money to get a building without charging you interest. So there's restructuring of debt that can also take place. Some people think, oh, well, we shouldn't have debt. You're going to always have some kind of debt in this capitalist society that we live in. This is a competitive market. So you're going to have some kind of debt. The question is, what kind of debt and who are you indebted to? So there's opportunity out here. I want you all to keep your mind open. There's going to be co-ops of people who are purchasing properties, buildings, neighborhoods. It's a great opportunity for us to go into certain areas and purchase some of these inexpensive houses and create beautiful neighborhoods for ourselves. We just got to think outside the box, and we can't get caught up in the carefully crafted PR that they are creating to go to war with each other. Okay, so they create these PR campaigns to influence the market and influence the other side that they're warring against. And then we're watching all this and we get caught up. And then they tell us, pick a side. So instead of us looking at these things strategically and going, okay, how should I be moving? How should I handle myself? We're just kind of getting quiet. We're getting scared. But what I'm saying to us is, let's play chess, but not checkers. So look at this thing. I don't care if you don't have a dime in your pocket right now. Start looking at this thing strategically. All right. So let's see. Brother said, so I'm in the commercial market in the inner cities. My approach is non-conventional purchasing, owner financing, creating the mortgage. We need to learn how to buy from this approach, not using the banking system when possible. Yeah, that actually is. And Sister Alita said, just recently, one of the largest commercial loans by PIMCO defaulted in 1.7 billion bank loan, and that represented only 7 large commercial buildings naturally. 7 large. Okay. Yeah, that's not a lot. And so also start to work on seeing money, but not judging the value of money based on what's in your pocket. So these people throw around millions of dollars, easily, for nothing. I had somebody approach me and say, oh, there's millions of dollars available for you if you allow us to just repackage the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and we'll give you credit for making him a historical figure. And I'm like, no, that's the underlay for the overplay, because he was that before I got the house. And repackaging him means that don't sound like the truth to me. So I'm not trying to hear that either. And so, but the millions of dollars they throw around like it's nothing. So let's not get caught up in that. I listen to people. I'm very keen when I coach you all. When you all sign up for coaching, I can hear your money psychology. I can hear by the tone of your voice. I can tell if you can explain something or not, and how you explain it, what's going on in your head psychologically when it comes to the money. And what I'm saying is, don't be afraid. Move strategically. There will be money moving around. And if it's not money that's moving around, there will be something of value moving around. And you just want to make sure that you're positioned so that it comes to you and you're right in front of it. And I like to use this analogy. Don't worry about what the gas prices are. Worry about whether or not you got whatever it is so that you can fill your tank up. So if they say you got to bring 50 commemorative Elijah coins to the gas station to fill up your tank, then you should just pray for 50 commemorative Elijah coins. If they say you got to bring a big old bushel of peaches to the gas station in order to get a tank of gas, pray for the peaches. Don't cry because they saying it's a whole bushel. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about if they say it's going to be $200, $400 to fill up one tank. That's not your prayer. Your prayer is, Allah bless me and thank you for blessing me with whatever I need to move around and do what it is that you have for me to do. Thank you for blessing me with that. I don't care if nobody don't like you. I don't care if nobody don't support you. You make sure that you are grateful. And then whatever you need will come to you. I'm going to go back to this. If you study the freed slaves from 1865 up until the early 1900s before they started to come out violently against us for owning our own businesses. Those people came right up out of slavery and went to places and established towns and cities and businesses with nothing. You talking about just a year or so ago, a month ago, you were getting whipped or lynched or whatever was going on. You was picking cotton. You went from that to owning viable businesses. And in a very, very short period of time, we were building cities and towns. Even during the Great Depression, had they not started to, what we didn't have was military. And so if they had not started to really attack us, even during the Great Depression, we would have made just as much money. But there were more millionaires made during the Great Depression than any other time in history. Even when the dot-com boom came and Silicon Valley popped up, it was bad economic times. This was the time of the Troubled Asset Relief Fund and Dodd-Frank and all of that. Times was tough. So, but now what happens is we have more social media, we have more news, so we panic. And so some of these things I talked about, they sound so foreign and spooky to us. Don't get caught up in that. Just know that at the end of the day, what our prayer needs to be is that we have what we need. Number one, to survive, and number two, to thrive. Because at the end of the day, in the Bible, the Holy Quran, it talks about the back becoming the front, the last becoming the first, the bottom rail becoming the top. I don't have to, y'all know what I'm talking about. It talks about that. So when it's said, when those things are said in those particular types of scriptures, we have to be about the business of fulfilling that. And so that's our prayer. We're not going to focus on them talking about, because this is another thing. It's all psychological, because when I see us at restaurants, whether it's Portillo's or Wendy's, the line is long as I don't know what. We buying all this fake food, these big old sandwiches they put on the screen. The sandwich be this wide, and they put it up close so that you looking at it, and then you go get in your car like, man, let me get that chicken sandwich. Let me get that French fry. And you're not really, and that stuff is expensive. Chicken wings and all that stuff is really, really expensive. But we're not thinking about that, but we worry about what they tell us to worry about. So they done told us to worry about gas. They told us to worry about our banks, whatever they tell us to worry about. But at the end of the day, remember that you serve a God that's going to take care of you. So remember our beloved minister's lecture at Savior's Day, and our arms he gave us to combat the war of Armageddon. And so let's stay focused in that vein. And anything you guys want to talk about, all you got to do is DM me on Instagram or Facebook at Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. DM me either place, and we can have a conversation about it. But I don't want you guys out here scared. If you watch the news, you don't understand, go look at YouTube. If you think you know, go look at it anyway. Because I think one of the biggest problems is going to be those of us that think we're so smart. You better get strategic around here and start studying. So anyway, y'all, it's time to go. I had to put my coffee away because the sun then came up. But I pray you all are having a glorious, glorious fast. For those of you who are fasting, thank you all for being in the chat and showing me that you're here, because it's saying that there's only 2 of y'all online, but I see you, Sister Bridget. I see Brother Lamont. I see Brother Robert. I see Sandra D. I see Sister Alita. I see Regional Sky Girl. I see Sister Leisha. Let's see. I see it's 2 Brother Roberts on here. Another Brother Robert. Brother Robin, 11X Minor. Sister Alicia is here. Roz Noah is here. So they trying to say ain't nobody on here, but I see y'all. I see some more. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you. Make sure you get your commemorative Elijah coin. Again, like I said, we the biggest consumers in the world. We can consume the money to preserve our history. I know we can do it. And I believe 100%. I'm not taking none of these people money who want to repackage and change the history and change how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is represented. You're not going to repackage him and readjust him and let's change it up. I'm not doing that because I believe that this last leg of the completion of the home can be done by the people that he gives his life for. So let's make a sacrifice. Let's go out here. We got some other items. This is 500. It's 10% off. I just got these mugs that are out here. That's for $100 contribution, supporting gift. So we can do it and we can do this. And we need you all. Tell a friend to tell a friend. If you can't purchase your coin today, you can go out here. You can Cash App us. Whatever it is you can afford to Cash App at $Mo Today, MOETODAY, or Sajdah House Donations, or you could tell a friend. You might not be able to get it, but tell a friend to tell a friend. Remember, closed mouths don't get fed. And so I'm opening mine on here every time y'all see me. All right, family. Peace and blessings. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know in the chat if this kind of helped you. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Michael, Sister Marva. Yes. She says, what reputable news channels to watch about the economy? So I watch two. I watch CNBC. Sometimes it's good for information. Sometimes they only have people who talk about certain things on there. But I watch Kitco News. KITCO News. KITCO News. I'll put it in the chat. And that you can get it on YouTube. And they have a lot of just like CNBC has a lot of. I love CNBC because they have a lot of CEOs and CFOs that come on there and do interviews and give an economic outlook, just so that you could keep your finger on the pulse of it. And see what's going on. They have that. I subscribe to market briefs and I follow a lot of financial people on Twitter. Just so my finger is on the pulse. But when I look at the news, those are my two go-tos, CNBC and Kitco News. And I like Kitco because a lot of the people like Robert Kiyosaki, for example, they won't have him no more on CNBC because he said he don't invest in nothing you can print. And ever since then, you won't see him anymore on Squawk Box or CNBC or any of those shows. But he said he invests in nothing you can print. He don't care if it's a bond, whatever it is. If you can print it, he don't invest in it, which means that he probably is primarily a commodities investor. So, those are, those are just the two that I take a look at. Any other questions? Anybody else? Any other questions out here? Anything? Okay, family. I see. Thank you all for coming into the chat. I see some more of you have come in. Anyway, may today be a blessed day of fasting for everyone. Make sure you're exercising and you're moving around. At Kitco, I look at it on YouTube. And you can go back and Kitco is good because you could go back and binge on it on YouTube and subscribe to it. They should give me some money for plugging them, right? But I like it because you can just listen and hear different views. So I listen to the CEOs and CFOs that come on to CNBC. And then I also listen to those that come on to Kitco. And so it gives you kind of like two different views. I would encourage you all to always try to look at both sides of the coins. Sometimes we tend to look at the Democratic channels as Black people, but it's important that we look at both the Democratic and the Republican channels because at the end of the day, we have to figure out what's best for us as a people. So we're choosing between Satan and Lucifer. So we just got to figure out who's the best for us on certain issues. And so I would encourage you not to just blanket support somebody and go, okay, they're a Democrat. Some of these people on both sides of coins are very, very racist, very, very anti-Black, anti-women. So that's important. And so just like other people support their constituency, you should be looking at these candidates and these shows based on who's most advantageous to you all or to us as a people, and what our teachings are and what our economic blueprint is as followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I say our because even if you're not a Muslim, that blueprint that he gave us is for everyone. It's for all of us as Black people. And trust me, it works. He created that empire with almost $100 million when there was 20% interest rates. You think interest rates is high now. It was 20% in the late 60s and early 70s. Over 20% inflation. It was crazy. So folks, so that model works. All right, family, make sure you like and subscribe to the page, and please go out here and get your commemorative Elijah coin. Peace and blessings. I'm gone for real this time.